Hey, it's me, Nesser. Welcome back to the Nesser Show. On the couch with me today is Tara Kumar. Tara is a broadcaster and DJ who made her name here with RT2XM. She's recently moved to London, and I'm really excited to know about the move. We also take a deep dive into Tara's life and experiences so far. I hope you leave inspired. Hey, it's me, Nesser. Welcome back to another episode of the Nesser Show. Today, I'm with broadcaster and DJ Tara Kumar.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. Guys, this morning, I called up Tara and I was like, look, we need somebody for the show. Can you make it? She's like, Ness, I'm in Japan, but I'll see what I can do. Do you know what I mean? So she hopped on her private jet, landed on the roof, and here she is. Thanks for...
Here I am. Firstly, wish I was in Japan yesterday or this morning. That would be amazing. I've never been. But also didn't come in on private jet. Wish I did. But these are dreams and goals we're going to manifest for the future.
Amen.
I love it. Thank you.
That's where we are. So, Tara, anyway, you're on the couch today. Thanks for joining me.
I'm honoured.
We'll start off with a light question. Okay. Could you tell us about a time in your childhood that you felt the most happiest?
That's a really nice question to start off on. I think, do you know what I was thinking about the other day? You know the new movie Air that's about to come out. So I went to go and see it the other day and I loved it. Now there's been some mixed reviews. Some of my friends aren't mad about it. I love it, I think, for the nostalgic element. Not that you're asking my opinion on the movie and that's what I'm getting into. But I just love that it's based in the 80s. I love the music, the style and everything. But obviously it's about Michael Jordan and basketball. And I played basketball when I was a teenager and I always forget about that part of myself because I've been so music focused for most of my life. But when I played basketball as a teenager, I did it for 10 years.
Wow.
That's when I was my happiest at the time. I preferred playing basketball than I did studying music and playing music, mostly because the music side of things was all like studying theory and like staying inside and practicing on my own, whereas basketball was being part of a community, a team of girls that it was the first time I felt like I was actually really good at something. And, you know, because you can measure how good you are at a sport, you know, and with how many shots you're taking or whatever, and your teamwork and your ethics and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, to answer your question in a very long way, when I played basketball when I was a kid was probably when I was my most happiest.
That's amazing.
And it's funny you mentioned that because I literally was just thinking of it fondly the other day and I posted about it on my Instagram and I had two of the girls that I played with, they follow me on Instagram from my town in Australia. And they messaged me being like, oh my God, we haven't thought about that time in such a long time. And so I asked them actually to get some photographs because I don't have any photos of that. And they said they're going to dig some out for me. So there was a nice little moment.
That's really cute.
There.
Like, I mean, like I play sports as well. So it's like, I think there's a special connection that you make with people in sports that you actually become lifelong friends. Like even if it's just, or you could become lifelong enemies if they're really annoying people on your team.
No, but I do. I have one enemy from basketball. Her name was Stacey. I still remember her to this day. If I ever see her again, we'll talk about it. Maybe we'll become friends.
I mean, do you know what? Like you actually might, because I even like from college, there are some girls that like I didn't like or get on with at the time, but because we all struggled, ran the beep test, woke up 6 a.m., like starved ourselves, probably shouldn't have, but we had the same shared experience that nobody else in this world understands what we went through those 4 years of college.
But you guys probably actually would get on in 100%. An outside environment because you have so much in common. Whereas in that you're probably competitive because that's what it was with me and her. We were like enemies because we were so competitive and we both wanted our teams to win. But I think if we just left that all behind, we'd actually get on, and you'd probably have the same experience.
I don't know about that one, but you know.
Try to find it positive.
Some people ops forever. But during that time, like even in your reflection, either now or before, was there anything that those kind of moments taught you that you have maybe taken on unknowingly into the rest of your life?
Yeah, I think for a long time I didn't think teamwork or being part of a network was important. After I played basketball, because I kind of had a can I swear on this?
Yeah, do whatever you want.
I had a shitty kind of end to basketball. I didn't want to finish, but it was something that I didn't really have much choice in. And so I got really kind of upset about it and really missed that community and having that team. So I think I kind of went a bit too independent then and kind of insular and introverted and very much just did my own thing for a long time. And so I then had this opinion that the only way I was going to succeed was be on my own and I didn't really need anyone else around me. And then it wasn't until even, I don't know, maybe a few years ago that I was like, do you know what, actually the best thing happens through community and happens through teamwork and bouncing ideas off people. And now I crave to work with other people and communicate and connect with other people, whereas for a long time I didn't. But I've found I've been more successful because I've connected with more people. Amazing. And I think that's obviously things work in different ways for different people, but that's probably the biggest thing I learned is trying to channel that energy and that inspiration. That's the word I'm looking for. It's inspiration and finding people that inspire you and bring you up and make you strive to be the best possible person you can be. That's what I found I learned from basketball. Amazing. Which is nice that I've kind of reconnected with that again, you know, later in life. So
it's amazing. It's so interesting, the things that like live in us and are embedded in our personality, in our minds, even when we're not actively thinking about those things, you know. And even in saying that, you said that you were able to like reconnecting with that value. Is there anybody you would like to shout out right now that's kind of helped you understand that a bit more?
Yeah, I mean,
or people.
Yeah, people. I would say, you know, two of my really, you know, two of the closest people to me. One would be, you know, my partner Mango, who, you know, definitely brought me into that space of having a community and people to connect with and people to be inspired by. And him and I also inspire. Even today, he was messaging me, asking about some social media stuff and like some meetings that he was having in emails or whatever. And he was like, it's so funny. Sometimes I feel like we're each other's PR agency and marketing agency, as in like we bounce ideas off each other all the time because we trust each other so much. So, you know, we both have our respective managers and fields. Exactly. We're in different areas and we both have, you know, our agencies or managers that we're signed to. But at the same time, sometimes we want someone that fully understands us 100%, and we will bounce stuff off each other. And we'll be like, you know, even if I'm about to have a meeting or after a meeting, I'll call him for just a bit of a debrief, just to kind of hear if sometimes if I'm just being a bit mad. Or if I'm reading into something a bit too much. Because sometimes I like to have that clarity, because that's another 100%. Thing I usually in the past would have maybe not thought before I did something so much, and then now I'm trying to just take a breath before, you know, going forward with something, saying, you know, replying to an email, taking something the wrong way, any of that kind of stuff. So I definitely have to shout out him.
Hey, it's me, Nesser. So sorry to stop this episode, but need to take the moment to encourage you to like this episode and subscribe to Culture Shop. Thanks. I don't know what I was going to say something when I did that. Guys, just watch it.
And then I would probably shout out my best friend Emma. She owns, you know, a few vintage shops and stuff in Dublin. Her and I have been best friends for a better part of 10 years at this stage. And we came up together from when she owns Nine Crows, which is a vintage shop.
Nice,
They've got 2 shops in Dublin, and Loot, so shout out to them. But Emma and I have been friends since she started Nine Crows on Crow Street, and it was a small shop, and then it stopped having a shop, and it went online. It was in a warehouse. Then it opened another shop on the Quays. Like, I've seen her grow and change, and seen the people that have come through her businesses, and seen her branding change, and then go on to open a modeling agency with not another agency, and then also then open another vintage shop. And we've always circled back to each other. And to see each other from when we used to be scrambling to afford to, we like the finer things in life, but we haven't been able to fucking afford the finer things in life. But we love to get like, we used to love going to this like Spanish tapas restaurant that we both couldn't actually afford. But we would just scramble and be like, we can get 1 glass of wine. And we'd be sitting with that glass of wine for hours and maybe get like 1 bruschetta to share. And I'd say the staff kind of hated us in there because we were kind of doing that. But, you know, now, you know, seeing how we've grown, exactly, something that we can laugh at, and having someone that we've been through so much stuff together, and seeing both of us work. You know, we don't see each other as much as we want to because we do work really hard in our respective careers. But when we're there for each other, we're there for each other. So I want to give them, both of those people,
That's
a shout
amazing.
out.
Shout out Mango, shout out Emma.
Yeah.
I think both of those stories are really, really amazing because I mean, online, like I see you and Mango and it looks like all jokes and stuff like that. Like even your post about like the feminism leaving your body and stuff like that. But I think like in the fields that we're in and people are going into, I think there's definitely this whole self-made vibe about things. And I think nobody is ever really truly self-made, and I think it's really important to shout out like collaboration and that community that I think, like, we're in Dublin, so we'll talk about Dublin creative scene. I think that's something that's growing, and I think in a positive manner, where in certain fields and in certain areas in the world you see stories about people being snaked and stuff like that, and I'm sure it's going on here just because here's just like everywhere else in the world. Do you know what I mean? But it's really good to hear positive stories and positive people who are very much closely linked to you. It's not like Mango's like a software engineer and Emma's like something that's not connected to your field at all. It's like you guys have respective fields that are somewhat connected to each other, but you're not like afraid of each other shining, because it seems like all three of you are doing amazingly by yourselves,
100%,
you know, but together.
It's nice because, one, you're able to, well, you know, especially with Emma, I used to, you know, I've DJed for Nine Crows years ago when they were doing like kilo sales and stuff, and then I'm DJing for Loot, which is her new shop, next weekend. And so it's kind of full circle again, you know, seeing how successful she is, and then being there for your friends and seeing each other succeed and be part of each other's moments in life. You know, she's been to plenty of my gigs where nobody's been there, but then she's been there when loads of people are there. When I played my first festival at Forbidden Fruit, she was there side of stage, you know, so having all those moments together. Now, don't get me wrong, there's moments in life,
100%.
especially in this industry, where you can be envious of other people, and you, especially in media, especially in presenting and DJing and music, because when you're putting in the work, sometimes you let a kind of like evil eye in you kind of come through, and sometimes you need to really like check yourself on that to make sure that you don't, because that's just negative energy that's not going to help anyone.
100%.
And so sometimes, don't get me wrong, it happens to me where I look at someone and I'm envious of what they're doing, and I'm like, I wish I had that, or I even feel like I should have gotten that opportunity. But at the same time, it wasn't meant for me, and someone else
100%.
was meant to get it, and it's meant for them.
Yeah.
So, but I go through those moments, like, not all the time, but when I do, it feels so out of character for me. So I always just have to make sure I check myself. But I think it's always the way. But I would never actively tear somebody down. But
I love that.
Sometimes, you know, I think it's amazing
it's
to
human.
have.
It's
Exactly,
a human
it's human,
feeling.
it's human. But yeah, I think that kind of negative energy, I've done it. I'm not saying I'm amazing, I'm like this princess. I'd love to say I am, but you just can't let that get the better of you, and you have to. The only way I've ever gone forward is through positivity, and I'm not meaning fake positivity, I mean just like everything's amazing, just genuine people really being there to support you and your actual friends, and people that are there for you, you know, kind of when things are bad as well, you know.
Amazing. Thank you for saying that, because I hope whoever's listening, that resonated with them. But definitely, I feel like you were speaking to me, because I've had a couple scenarios in the last couple like weeks, months, where I feel like that. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm definitely not at the height of my career, and like a lot of people I'm around aren't, but I do feel like sometimes you see things and you're kind of like, is that inspiration, or are you just copying me? Or it's stuff like that, and you just want to shout out. And I remember I tweeted recently, and I was like, somebody said to me that, oh, they're never going to give you your flowers, or something like that. And then Red commented, and he was like, flowers don't pay the bills. So I was just like, that makes so much sense. Like cool.
Red's always coming through,
bro,
with the hot takes.
he's a little silent guru,
He
like,
is,
you know.
isn't he? Yeah.
And it's kind of like you said, like checking myself as well, in the sense that like, obviously, like it's just little things, and you get a bit of a thrill when something really good happens, that you almost you get addicted to wanting to continue to succeed, you know. And that's, I think, sometimes what comes out of it when you have an opportunity where you could have leveled up again, and it doesn't come, and you're like, bro, like, I want that feeling again, you know.
100%. You kind of you very much get addicted to it, and it's a funny thing, because it's a mixture of that and also wanting to always be inspired and strive, and always wanting to better yourself. And you can find a balance where you're never. I think my main thing is, when I kind of started out in media, I was never happy until my next opportunity came, or my next great opportunity. And in the limbo period, I was not happy. I was angry all the time. I was well, not angry at the time, it's a bit of a stretch, but I just wasn't happy inside myself. I didn't really enjoy myself day to day. I was always thinking about work all the time and thinking, how can I get this opportunity? Or how can I level up? Or what else can I do to make myself... Because also at the back of my head, I'm like, this industry, you know, I'm a sole trader, I'm self-employed. So you are riding on yourself. 100. So when I first started, I was always like, I have to fucking pay rent next month. And then eventually when you actually start, you're like, okay, I can comfortably pay rent. But then you start being like, I need more opportunities.
I need to pay rent and then I need to have soft life and then I have to softer life.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But then I think, I don't know if it's just I've gotten older and more mature. I really don't know what is the eureka moment that happened for me, where I've started to enjoy the in-between life as well, where I'm not just enjoying the fab party that we might go to and then I'm like in a raging mood the next day, or I'm like, well, life is shit now after the next day. I enjoy all of those moments, and then I also enjoy the in-between, because normally I'd be up in the morning on my laptop working all day and not actually just being like, not allowing myself to just go for a walk or go to a vintage shop on a weekday. Like, I'd be like, I'm not allowed to do that because everyone's working, everyone's hustling all the time.
You don't reward yourself until you see that piece of success coming through. And that's almost like
it's a revolving, you get that. And so you, like what you said there is nail on head, and it's finding that balance. And don't get me wrong, this industry, it's amazing to see so many more people now, because there weren't that many people back when I started. And now I love seeing you doing this is amazing. Even when you and I met at the Def Jam party last year, and I was like, this is incredible. You were amazing talking to me. I thought you were so warm. But without sounding like a hippy dippy, what's not for you won't pass you. Is that what it's saying?
What's for you won't pass you. Yeah.
So shout out to Tracy Clifford on 2FM. She's always said that saying to me, and I can never ever remember it. She's been telling me the saying for 6 years, and I can still never remember
your brain just doesn't.
My brain just refuses to. But basically, I think what's for you will come to you. And I don't mean you sit on your ass.
100%. You gotta work still.
But if someone else gets an opportunity that you really wanted, and it's happened to me, you just have to be like, yeah, it is what it is. Move on to the next thing.
Yeah, amazing.
And not let it consume you, and not let that negative energy out.
Amazing. Yeah, amazing. That is.
I'm acting like a guru, but Jesus.
No, that was amazing. That was meant to be the intro, and wrap it up. We're good. Wrap it up.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. No, like I think it's so honest and authentic of you, and I think everybody needs to hear that. Like I said, that is something that I genuinely needed to hear right now. So I appreciate that.
Well, good. I'm glad.
But let's circle back.
Okay.
You mentioned having to quit basketball. Do you want to talk about why or how? What happened there?
I mean, it was more like, so at the same time I was learning music, and I played flute and saxophone. I was studying classical music. I was studying jazz music. All of my time was spent being at school or studying music. And my parents really wanted me to be like a successful musician. And, I'm not going to lie, my parents know this, so I'm not afraid of them listening. I didn't want to do music at the time. I loved music, but I just wanted to play with my friends.
Yeah.
That's literally
I just want to do hood rat shit with my friends.
I just want to play with my friends. I wish I was a teenager or a kid that would have been loved practicing, but I fucking hated practicing the flute and the saxophone. All I wanted to do was just go out and play basketball with my mates. But my parents were like, no, you have to practice. And so they were really strict with that. And there was a lot of fights between my dad and I about it. In hindsight, I'm happy. I'm not a musician really so much anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I still am. I always will be, because I still have my instruments and I play just for myself. But I mean, I'm not actively out trying to be a musician like I was.
But I'm sure it works hand in hand with what you're doing.
Exactly. It meant I have an ear for music, and then I got into DJing. My love of music has always been there. I won't say the classical and jazz element necessarily helps with my DJing and all that kind of stuff. But maybe I'd say it probably does at the same time,
100%.
to some degree. So I was devastated because I was playing for my town, and we were about to go on this big trip.
Oh gosh.
And my parents were like, you can't go. Like, they just were like, you need to focus on music. And so I was so devastated, because then the thing that broke my heart was the team, they didn't understand where my parents were coming from.
Yeah.
And then they actually kind of took out on me at the time,
gosh.
and they didn't want to be friends with me anymore.
Aw.
Now,
Stacey!
I know. Well, no, Stacey's on the other team. Fuck Stacey. She was absolutely terrifying. Like, we used to play against her all the time. And her and I used to just get into beefs on the court. But, yeah, so that's why it was just, I lost a lot of friends in my group, you know, that we trained together.
That's your social circle at that
social
stage,
circle,
right?
yeah. So that was just heartbreaking at the time. But it is what it is, you know. I then also, my parents were like looking at my career. They were like, they just in their opinion didn't feel like I'd have a long career as a basketball player, and they didn't want me to have to if I get injured, then I'm screwed.
Yeah, 100%.
They were trying to be parents
Reality
about it. And I
check
understand
type
it.
thing, yeah.
I respect it. It is what it is.
100%. I don't want to assume, but I know that you have an Indian background. Like, would that be part of the culture as well? Because like as an African, like a lot of like everybody in this room will tell you that they were going to be a professional footballer. So everybody has that kind of stereotype in our community where it's kind of like, especially if you're a girl, like I fought tooth and nail with my mom and aunties that came to the house asking me when I was going to marry. I'm like, bro, I'm 12. So like there was always this stigma on me playing football and me being a tomboy of some sorts. Like, is that the same in your culture?
Yeah, I mean, side note, my dad did want me to be a professional footballer as well.
Oh, lit.
And I did play for a while, but I literally was on the field gossiping to the only other girl on our team because it was a mixed team and there was only 2 girls on there. And it was an all-Irish team as well because there was like a community of Irish people in the town. And literally I'd just be there and they'd be shouting my name and I'd just be like gossiping to her. So my dad was like, right, obviously football's not her thing. But yeah, there is. It's a funny one because I have to say, you know what, I've had to do a lot of convincing to my mum to convince her to be on board about what I do for my career. Now, she couldn't be more proud of me, like, you know, but definitely, I don't know, it's funny because I think about how my parents are proud of me now, and I know they had doubts for a long time. My mum very much wanted me to go to university and everything, but I couldn't afford to go to university. I would have loved to have gone to college. I really would have, more so for the social aspect, because I know there's lots of people that have lots of friends that they meet in college. So I would have loved that. I don't necessarily know what I would have studied there. I maybe would have done like media or maybe music. I never had the urge to go to study something for my further career because I also I didn't want to get into radio until I was in my mid-20s. So at the time I was a musician. So yeah, my mum did want me to go and do that, but my dad really wanted me to be a musician. So I guess even in terms of my family that are in Malaysia, so my mum's Malaysian Indian, and most of my family live there, and I've got some cousins and stuff like kind of scattered around. But yeah, I remember vividly when I was moving to Ireland when I was 20, and I was like, I'm moving to Dublin to be a musician. And they were like, are you fucking high? And I was like, no, this is what I'm doing. I was like, this is what I'm doing. And they were like, so what's your plan? And I was like, I don't have a plan. I didn't have a plan. It was vibes. It was, I was going to go to some open mic nights. That was my plan at the time. I'd saved up loads of money working in restaurants, cafes. I worked a bit as a random sheriff's office clerk in a Supreme Court. Very silly title. It was
in Australia.
In Australia.
I was going to say, this doesn't sound like a job in Ireland.
No, it wasn't. It was in the middle of the outback, ridiculous kind of name for a job. But yeah, anyways, my mum, she just got on board. Wasn't necessarily happy, but got on board. And yeah, my family were like, Tara is going to be the shitty one in the family, pretty much. Honestly, they did think that way. And I used to get so put out by it and really offended by it. But then I was like, you know what, I just have to prove people wrong.
And I think you...
And that's it. And because there's no one that does... nobody in my family does anything like I do. And I'm not trying to sound... That sounds like very dramatic, sorry. But I mean, like everyone works in... corporate. Everybody does. So I think a couple of my aunties now are working in food because they used to work in corporate and now they're following their passions, you know.
You inspired them.
I don't think I inspired them
you
at
are
all.
You are the gel.
I've inspired my whole entire family. No. But yeah, so it's a funny one. I mean, even now still my cousins would be like, so much work on this month? And I'm like, yes.
But like even then growing up, what does a Malaysian Indian, like did your parents grow up in Australia or did they move there? Like how does that look? Because obviously we're all in Ireland. The majority of people are viewing in Ireland. Like, could you explain your childhood, like, to us, or just the setting at that time?
Sorry. So I'm just having a sip of water.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I had a salty lunch, so like I'm so dehydrated for some reason. So my dad's from Belfast, and then my mum is from Malaysia. So my dad moved to Australia, and my mum, in like I think the 70s. My dad's a little bit older than my mum. When he was an adult, he went to go and study at university there. And then my mum moved from Malaysia to study in Australia at university as well. And then they ended up meeting in my town called Alice Springs, which is in the middle of Australia. A really small town, literally in the middle of the desert. And they met there. My dad was a lawyer at the time. My mum, I think, ended up... they've actually never really told me the truth on how they met, so I'm not even going to get into that. They've told me about 10 million different stories, but they then opened a bar and a restaurant together. Because my mum was like an amazing cook, and she really, I don't know why, I've actually need to ask her what the inspiration was behind it, but she opened an Indian restaurant and an Irish bar.
Oh, wow.
So they were actually connected, so there literally was a door that went through them, and it was a traditional Irish pub that my dad and my mum had kind of built. And then they had this Indian restaurant next door. And then I grew up in that pub, literally, for most of my childhood, up until I was 18, from when I was like 6 or 5. And then I was an only child between my mum and dad. I've got half siblings, but I don't really know them. And then I slept in, we had this apartment, this flat that was behind the bar. And it was fine. Like it was... You know, it had its ups and downs. It's a bit kind of chaotic.
What did you do? Like, is it the same? Like, am I just being completely like dumb? Like,
no,
in the sense that like your childhood in Australia, like what would you say is the biggest difference between growing up in Australia versus people you would think growing up here?
I guess the environment would be the biggest difference, I'd say, in terms of it doesn't rain ever. Maybe once a year it rains. It's like there's kangaroos, there's loads of things that will kill you animal-wise. And then apart from that, I mean, it was just me growing in the pub. Like that was the biggest difference.
The majority of your
I grew up, and that's why I really like socializing, I think, is because I literally spent my evenings in that pub. I used to sleep in the kitchen underneath my mum's countertop, just quite so I could spend time with her, because she'd be working. She was the chef, and she like ran the whole restaurant as well. She was the manager. She never ever slept. Like, it was a lot of work for her at the time.
Do you think that's where you got a lot of your drive?
I think so. Yeah, definitely. I think so. I mean, again, I'm talking as me getting older. I'm like finding more work-life balance. But at the time, and I mean, my mum is still really hardworking now. They don't have the restaurant anymore, but she's doing other stuff that she's went on to go back to finish her degree in psychology now. And then she's studying to get a doctorate as well. Nice. And my mom's in her late 50s, and she's doing this. And she's wanted to do this for a long time. She's been saving up a lot of money to be able to go and do that. And so I think I do get my drive from her.
That's amazing. That's quite inspirational as well, to keep going, you know?
It is, and I think it's amazing. So, I think the biggest difference was the fact that I grew up in that pub, honestly, because I was around people all the time. And that's where I learned to love music. I used to play music there. I used to play at the open mic nights every weekend. And I think, and also like the lifestyle of sport is really different there. Like, I'd be playing sport every night of the week. Even my mum was giving out all the time, being like, I had to drive you around to all these sporting games. And then she actually ended up not having much time to do that because she was working in the restaurant all the time. So I think that was probably the biggest difference. Nice. I'm trying to think.
And then obviously you made the decision, and then you decided to come to Ireland to figure out just on vibes. And then I read somewhere, so you have a very extensive career. So you were a freelance writer for District for a couple of years, about 2 years. And then you also were at FRQ FM.
Yeah.
That does not exist anymore, does it?
I don't think it does.
Because their last tweet was in 2020.
Okay, so they do not exist anymore. So When I moved to Dublin, I was working in restaurants and cafes for about 6 years. I worked in a French restaurant, and then I worked in a cafe, a frozen yogurt shop. And then meanwhile, basically when I was working in I kind of started to get into FRQ. FRQ, it was owned by Communicorp, which owns Spin and AFM and stuff. And they basically had this station set up to be like a place for new talent to be developed or to go on.
Yeah.
I ended up going on FRQ because I saw a tweet basically that said they were looking for new cover presenters, I think for 98 FM or Spin, I can't remember which one it was. I decided with no radio experience that I was more than qualified to apply for this position.
This is amazing, yes.
And I applied for it and I didn't get it, obviously. But I made a demo in my bedroom, like with sheets. I looked at like YouTube videos on how to do a DIY radio demo.
Yeah.
And like, I keep trying to, like looking through my emails to see if I can find it, because I'd love to have a listen to it now. So yeah, I didn't get it, but they did think I had potential. So they asked me to send an email to FRQ. Sent an email there, ended up getting a show on that. But like I said, it was a digital station. It was very much like my mum and dad were the only people that listened to me. Like that was it. But it was just...
You moved on your own, right?
I moved on my own, but they used to listen, because it was digital.
Online,
they could listen back or whatever.
So,
I was doing that, and I was in there a couple years, I think. And I used to do 2 shows a week. I did one like before I'd be working in the cafe on Saturday mornings, and then after the cafe on Thursday evenings. I used to do that, and then I didn't really felt like I got much out of it, to be honest, because in fairness, there was no really incentive for anyone. It was just like kind of, I think more so like a way to get your foot in the door, to be in the building of where Spin and Communicorp were based, as a way to maybe bump into someone on network or whatever, because I was sending loads of demos in to them, and I never got a bite from there. And that's fine, it is what it is. You know, they obviously didn't think I suited anything. And then I applied to 2XM and Pulse on RTE, and that's when I got another opportunity in there.
Yeah. And then you were there for what, 6-8 years ago?
Yeah, I was there for 6 years. So I started there about 6 years ago. And then I was doing my own show on 2XM. But I mean, this took ages. I sent like 3 or 4 emails before I got a reply from RTE. Like, I was begging for a reply because a couple of people kind of said you should really, really fight for it. And they thought I had potential. And I was like, they haven't written back, it's fine. Yeah. And then I just was like, please, I'd really love just a meeting. Yeah. Because I also find I'm just better at selling myself in person.
In person, 100%.
And that was, a struggle with COVID as well. One of many struggles for many people. But having that, having meetings on Zoom, it's so much different to having a meeting face to face.
Especially if you're like a personable person, if that's where your strengths lie.
Exactly, and I'm sure you know that. So I just wanted a meeting. I was like, just give me one meeting, and then, and if you say no, then that's fine. But just give me one meeting, and then I ended up after I think 3 or 4 emails, getting a meeting, and then they were like, okay, fine, we think you have potential.
Yeah.
So.
And then you were on the new music show for
RT.
So like a lot of what you did, and I know like a lot of artists in Ireland, when you posted that you were moving to the UK, to London, were messaging about like and posting about how you were one of the first people who ever played them, and they like really appreciated you and stuff like that. So in the sense of like finding new music in Ireland, first of all, like how hard or easy was that for you to find the content for your show?
It was so easy. Like I was really happy, so I had my new music show. I was doing the new music show for 3 years. The 3 years prior to that, I was sweating to get that show because there was so much great new music out there, and I wanted a space to be able to platform it. And I used to do a slot on Tracy Clifford's show on a Monday where I got to play one new song that I thought was great. And then also I'd talk about 3 music news stories, right? And in the midst of those 3 years, I also was used to cover the entertainment news. And I was doing the entertainment news full time, reporting the showbiz news. Oh, nice. Did that, and I did that like the afternoon shifts for that for better part of 2 years, and then also did Tracy's slot. So I only had one song a week I could bring to the table, and obviously that meant a lot to me. I've always been a fan of new music and new artists since I was 8 years old and I started listening to radio in Australia. There's a station called Triple J. If anyone likes radio and all that kind of stuff, Triple J basically is owned by ABC, which is like the Australian version of RTE. They had Triple J, which was this station where you could just do, they literally got free reign. They could do what they wanted. It was a youth station, and they played all new music. So they literally played whatever they wanted to play. So that's why whenever I sold myself to people, I was always like, I want to do new music. And I was also like, should I keep myself in this niche? Should I keep myself in this box? But it's what I'm most passionate about. So
100%.
I did that with Tracy, and I had the one song, and like I said, it was hard because there was so much music at the time. And I was like,
what time? This was probably 2016.
So yeah, so what year is this?
2023.
So no, it was 2020. So this is about
2020 was
2018.
3 years ago. I thought you meant like 6 years ago.
Yeah, no, it would have been like not 6 years ago. It would have been around
right before COVID.
4 or 5. About 4 or 5 years ago.
2019, 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah, right before COVID. There was definitely an increase of like new kind of I think indie went a bit, and then hip hop, soul, R&B kind of starting to increase as well. In
I mean, there was a time where like when Soleil was coming out and Jafaris was coming out. That was when I was very early on in my radio career, and I was super excited about them at the time. And then more and more people started to grow. And then by the time I got my show, I was like gagging to have my show because I was like, there's so much great new music out there. And then fast forward to before I finished, there was like, the show was only 2 hours long. And I was like, I wish it was longer because there was so much more new music out there now. And then fast forward to even now, since Better has taken it over. Like,
even more.
There's so much music. And it was... seeing even just like the increase of the amount of emails I'd be getting compared to when I started, very much at the time I was like, God, the music industry is booming at the moment. And then I never expected 3 years later to be saying it is really, really booming now. And every genre is like doing bits, you know, whereas for years it was, oh, this is in right now. And very much across the board worldwide, it was one genre is kind of king right now. Whereas now every genre,
kind of
and I think that's in relative to as well, fashion, kind of all fashions are everywhere. You know?
Yeah, I think everything is, we're becoming a bit more inclusive just in the
Everyone's
world
like,
in
you know
general.
what? Who gives a shit?
Do your thing, exactly. Obviously, there's an increase in the quantity of music that's been sent to you. Like you were saying, you're like a plethora of emails and obviously wanting the show to be more than 2 hours. But where would you say the quality is at? Altogether, would you say that the quality is increased as well with the quantity, or is it in some genres or in certain places it's just a lot of people are making music? But
no, I think the quality is up there. Yeah, I think there's always going to be a mixture in levels, you know, depending on what resources everyone has and where they're recording or what, because also it depends what community that you're part of, and we talked about this earlier. If you're lucky enough to have a community around you where someone is really great at recording music, you know, even Chamomile, for example, what they're doing is incredible. And the quality of the productions that they are doing are amazing because they're all leaning on each other and feeding off each other's talents, which is just amazing to see. So I think they've also kind of created another bar there in terms of the quality of output. Like even before now I know they have like Abby and Monjola have representation now, whereas when they didn't have representation, they were still creating an amazing level of quality. And, you know, they were like, right, here's the song and here's the music video and here's the artwork. And I think they've kind of set a nice bar in terms of having your package and that you don't need someone else to be able to do that. But then it makes it easier that you know who you are. So then when someone is representing
100%.
you, then you can stand your grounds with who you are, and they're just going to add to it. They're not going to change you in any way. So I think the quality's there.
I think that's definitely a massive point where a lot of people start out, they're still finding their voice, but they're also looking for management. And it's almost like there's actually nothing to manage right now until this thing is created. You as an entity is created, you know. And I think we speak a lot about like our little scene, which is pretty much just hip hop, drill, rap, bit of R&B here and there. But we do find like a lot of people do get frustrated with either exposure or whatever. But I think at the same time, like, I think that's a great point where it's like some people are still finding themselves, and I think to have the grace to allow people to find themselves, do you know what I mean? And then having leaders like Manjola and Abby, and the same with Gliders as well. And Nathan does a good job as well, to have people in the industry that you can go to that are, I wouldn't say well established, but establishing themselves, you know, where if you were to start off, we're now creating paths for people to follow. Not every new person is trying to figure it out, scrambling themselves, you know, which is amazing.
Because this industry is hard as it is, and it's hard to say that there's a blueprint for where you get to where you are. You just kind of have a go at everything. Even when people ask me, I'm like, I don't know, not that I don't know, but I'm just like, I did a bit of this, I did a bit of that. Just if you follow my recipe, it doesn't guarantee you're going to get something. And also, I didn't have a recipe that I could follow. I just had to figure it out. And I know that it's bullshit as a musician, hearing someone tell you, you need to work on yourself, and you need to get your fans, and you need to figure out who you are as a musician and your whole package before you get signed. Because it really sucks hearing that, because you might think that you're there and you're ready. And yes, in many cases you might be, but you might also, you want to find the right representation. But the biggest advice I would ever give is making sure you find the right representation for you, not just anybody. Because you can get excited by someone knocking on your door and saying that they want to represent you. That is exciting. Someone saying that they believe in you and they want to help you grow your career is really exciting to hear. But you just have to make sure you go with the right person. You look at who's on their roster. You look at what they've done for other artists that you might look up to. Sometimes, depending on what you do, it's good to be somewhere where there's other people that are similar, or sometimes it's good to be someone that stands out. Both ways, you just have to figure it out. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, still on the radio show, was there a moment that you had like your best day? What do you remember your best day that you like left and you just felt, I'm in my purpose, this is an amazing day?
I'd say it'd have to be my first day doing that show. Because it was a weird one, because it was such a bit of a lackluster moment where I was covering the show, depping for the show for about 6 months, but then they didn't announce that I had the show until after the 6, because basically the person, so Louise McSherry, not the person, Louise McSherry, who did that show for years, she'd gone on to do her weekend talk show, but they hadn't officially announced who was taking over the new music show yet. But I was covering it with Connor Bean as well, who now does the request show on 2FM. So we were very much, both of us were kind of like, oh, which one of us is it going to be? Obviously, I'm like, please let it be me. But then you're still proving yourself that that you're right for this position. And then also I'm like, oh, I could get used to this now. I'm going every day doing the show. It's not mine yet. And then eventually, they were like, okay, it is yours. But then I couldn't announce it for months. And then eventually I did announce it. And then I was like, I've been doing this shit for 6 months already.
It's already been mine.
Exactly. But it gave it a whole new life when I actually got to say, when I had I think when I heard it say my name and 2FM and that Sting playing that, I think I cried. I cried on my first link. And I mean, I think that was the moment where I was really... I did feel like a bit like, shit, how the fuck did I get here? How did they actually let me take this show? But then I think fast forward, I was very confident about myself then for the 3 years I did it. And then my last show I did, I was bawling crying the whole time.
I saw your...
And I was actually a bit embarrassed that I was crying so much. Because, I don't know, I just was like, everyone would just be like, can she relax? Do you know what I mean? No one's died.
I know,
but I was acting I was dying.
But it's almost it's also how you express your emotions in that time.
I know.
I'm all for people expressing emotions, because I'd be crying for no reason.
And I love that.
It's just like,
I'm just a bit of an emotion. I'm a Cancer. We're emotional.
Oh my God, when's your birthday?
Fuck. 21st of July.
I'm 6th of July.
Love it.
Not that I follow star signs and stuff, but
neither do I.
Most people say that, and I'm like, oh my God.
I know, and then that's the end of the conversation.
Good. So we're saying cool. Fire, is that fire? I have no idea. I have no clue what it is.
You say no. I just know crab, and that is it. But I do know cancers are emotional.
Lit.
So
I just love feeling validated in my emotions.
Yes,
so that's
exactly.
lit.
But yeah,
amazing.
listen, it is what it is. I was born crying, but I was sad. I wasn't even sad. I was just overwhelmed with emotion.
Yeah.
So those 2 days, I think, were
Amazing.
those. What was the like? It was. How did you word it with the question?
I can't remember.
But anyway, that was the answer.
I think it was like the day that you felt most in
Yes.
your purpose
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
I think those 2 days.
Amazing. So where does DJing come into all this? When did you become a DJ, or were you a DJ during that whole time?
Yeah, during that whole time,
Yeah.
I was becoming a DJ during the whole time, whilst I was also becoming a radio presenter, learning on the job, trying to just figure it out, gain new skills and kind of work my way up the industry. So at the time, I decided I didn't want to be a musician anymore, or not necessarily not be a musician, but I didn't want to pursue being a musician and perform. I wanted to still do music, but I wanted to figure out how to navigate that. I was like, I love music so much. I don't want to give up being in that industry at all. So then I kind of got into DJing, mostly through my housemate at the time, who worked in a restaurant, and they had DJs in there. And he was like, listen, I might be able to swing you a shift in there to DJ. And I was like, oh, please. And then I ended up burning loads of CDs, and CDs at the time. Now, listen, I'm not acting like I'm that old. I'm actually not. But I thought that was how you did it.
Yeah.
People were using USBs
I was gonna say
at the
USBs.
time, okay?
This was like 2 years ago.
This was literally 2 years ago. People were using USBs, but I was told that it was CDs. So that's what it. So then when I found out it was USBs, I was like, this is so much easier, because I couldn't even buy a
100%.
CD sleeve case. And it was even, I had to like pre-order CDs online to burn, so it was a nuisance. So yeah, I was becoming a DJ at the same time.
That's amazing. And like, I mean, like I said, we've had like, I think I've spoken to 6 DJs. I didn't even know that I knew 6 DJs. But like, everybody's had a completely different story. I think one thing that like stands out in your story is that you DJ for a lot of big brands. Like you've been at like some really big, like noticeable parties and things like that. Like, how do they come about? Like, how do you feel when you're there? Like, obviously I'm sure now you're very sure of yourself, but like how did that come about?
So when I started in RTE, when I started on 2XM, and when I got an RTE email, I was like, before the DJing stuff, I was still doing the DJing at the time. My first proper gig I DJ'd for New Year's Eve, no, not New Year's Eve, Halloween. And I actually emailed the club and asked if they needed a warm-up DJ for whoever was playing. The club's not there anymore. It was called the Odessa. And they were like, yeah, sure. And the woman who did the booking there knew me from booking me for festivals to sing and play guitar.
Oh, nice.
So she assumed I knew what I was doing, but I didn't. I kind of took advantage of that at the time, but I was like, I'm just going to figure it out. I was like, how hard can it be?
Like, the title of this is, I'm just going to figure it out.
Literally, I'm going to figure it out. That's what I mean. It's hard to tell someone how to follow my career, because I'm like, I was just figuring it out.
Figure it out
Figure
or
it out.
don't. Like,
So I asked her, to book, and then I DJ'd. It was an 80s theme. But I literally went to the decks like 4 hours before the club opened, and they were like, you're really early. I was like, yeah, I know. I just like, it took too long to go home. I'm literally touching decks for the first time in my life, trying to figure it out. In hindsight, I wish I'd just gone and learnt how to properly DJ before I put myself out there. But I was just winging it.
you were just figuring it out.
And I was figuring it out, seeing what was going to happen. And then after that, I couldn't afford to buy decks pretty much until the start of the pandemic, actually, because that's when I bought them. Because I was like, okay, I'm going to be here. I may as well just spend the money on a set of decks.
Yeah.
So I used to practice in RTE in 2XM and Pulse, where they have the studio. They had 2 sets of decks in there. Oh no, one set of decks. So I used to practice DJing in there. So it was really great. I had that space. And then I just used to email all of the PR agencies in Dublin, and I just introduced myself. And I was like, my name is Tara. I'm a radio presenter. I definitely picked myself up more than I was, because like no one was listening to my
I'm the
2XM
baddest DJ
show.
ever.
I was like, I'm a really amazing DJ. I just played this 80s party and it was amazing.
I'm extremely humble, as you can tell.
No, I'm messing. I'm very self-deprecating, so I'd say that's what the email was. I was like, listen, I'm fine, but any chance you had an opportunity. And that's the way I approached it. I emailed, said, if you have any press events. Mostly I was asking to be invited. And then also I was like, if you by any chance need a DJ, please keep me in mind. And I think I got lucky at the time that, well, not lucky, but Vogue Williams used to be doing loads of those gigs. And then she'd moved to London. I think she was doing more stuff there. So there were more opportunities to DJ events and stuff. So the more events I did, then the more I got booked for that.
Amazing. So then obviously you've done Pandora, Nike, GQ, Disney, like, and there's one that you did recently in London, and I was just kind of like, amazing. Like, it's just so to hear that your story is literally, I was just gonna figure it out. Like, but it goes back to what you were saying, that like what's for you isn't gonna pass you by, right? And like your energy, whether that's manifesting, whether that's working or whatever, like it all seemed to all come together for you to do that. And I do think that we're seeing more than ever like DJs having personalities now. Do you know what I mean? I think DJs being personalities, and like you said, you're doing presenting as well as that. And I think that's really amazing. And it's like, you inspire me as well. Like even just what you said, like being able to see, even though there's no blueprint of like to navigate, but it's just kind of put yourself out there and try and work hard at it. And it seems like that's what you've done.
In what you were saying earlier, and thank you, I appreciate that. What you were saying earlier, what did you say? Now I've actually had a mental blank.
Oh gosh.
But you were talking about, oh fuck, I've actually forgotten completely what you had. Such a great point you said earlier, and I wanted to bring it back to that. So anyway,
what was it about? What were we talking about?
It was earlier on in our conversation. No, my brain's totally just farted. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I really wanted to hear it as well.
I'm raging. I wanted to bring something back to you, but I think in terms of like, obviously, there is no blueprint, which is frustrating. But you kind of, we're talking about being addicted to success and the new opportunities
next level.
And the next level. Don't get me wrong, I love it still. Like, and more so now because, you know, I quit RTE and that was a really big decision for me to make. I didn't take it lightly. It took me a year and a half to make that decision. Because that was an opportunity I'd worked so hard to get. And I loved it. I really loved my show. But I wasn't happy in Dublin at the time. And I really wanted to move to London. I've been wanting to move to London since I was 20.
So since you got to Dublin?
Since I got to Dublin. It was my plan to go there.
Oh, wow.
Dublin was meant to be a stopover.
Yeah.
But then I was working in restaurants and cafes at the time. And then I was like, you know what, I'll just stay here for a bit longer. Then I started working in radio and media, and I was like, well, I don't want to leave now. And then I was like, you know what, I'll give it some more time. And then met my partner, Mango. But then when the pandemic hit, I was like, shit, I've been here for 10 years. And I didn't realize it just flown by. And then I was like, you know what, do I still want to move? So I was trying to figure out and navigate, do I still want to go? And then I decided I really did. But then when I left RTE and then I moved to London, that was even more so. I was like, right, now I'm really on my ass, because I was doing RTE, I was DJing, I was doing social media stuff as well. And I flat out all the time loved that. But then I didn't have that RTE, I didn't have a full-time job when I moved to London. So I had to work 10 times harder now. But I love it. Like, I really...
You love the grind, it seems like.
Yeah, I really enjoy the grind. And not in an unhealthy way.
Yeah. But I think as well it's different now, because
it is,
as much as you're saying that you're really on your arse and stuff, you're not, because you've made a name for yourself in Ireland with one of like RTE is the top station in general, like as a broadcaster there. Like, we've named the people and events that you have either DJ'd for, presented for, or hosted in a sort of way. Now you have a credible career and CV to back anything you're going to say. But London is a different just kettle of fish altogether.
But you're right though. I know I say on my ass, but I think I'll always put myself down a bit. I am confident and I'm really happy and proud of what I've achieved, but I will always bring myself back to where I come from. And so and it's hard to realize and accept that I have got a lot of things I wanted to get. Even now, if saying those words feels weird, I'm like superstitious. I'm like, it's all going to end tomorrow if I say that I am successful. And it's hard saying that, because like, it feels also like you're like, okay, would you relax? Do you know what I mean?
I think I don't know, I don't want to put this on you, but I think hearing it, for me anyway, that's how I feel about presenting, where it's like, the things that I've worked for and the things that I've like gone to college for, and I'm like, I can see that path clearly. So if I come off that, I know where to re-enter into that. But in this thing, you didn't set off on any said path. So if you made it off vibes or just hard work and vibes are really hard to kind of connect to again. Do you know what I mean? Where it's kind of like, I understand that uncertainty you might feel where you're saying like, okay, now you're on your arse or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's literally because now you have to now figure out that path again for yourself, you know?
Yeah, and London is a whole different
Yeah.
kettle of fish. It's mad. But at the same time, it's the same as Dublin.
Yeah.
Not exactly the same.
Yeah.
I've had to learn how it works and navigate it. I spent the last year and a half going back and forth to meet people, go to events, because I didn't want to be starting from scratch there. I wanted to go in comfortably and not be like, okay, fuck.
I'm here, guys.
I'm here. I left my boyfriend in Dublin. I quit my full-time job and let's just figure it out. Very much figure it out energy, but with a little bit more maturity and preparation.
A little bit of pizzazz underneath.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's amazing. And I know you're saying that like, okay, that you might not put yourself up or whatever, but I'm here to tell you that you're amazing. And that's one of the reasons why, like, when I met you at O207, like for me that was really like confirming time, because I had you on my notes of names of people that I wanted to interview like this time last year as well. So for me it's been really exciting to actually like meet you and watch your journey. And as much as we are here like giving you your flowers, I would also like to give you flowers.
Oh my God, you're messing.
Yeah, here you go.
Oh my
and they
God.
actually match your glasses. And it's just a little token of appreciation, just in case you haven't heard it from anybody.
Oh my God.
I know you're figuring out.
Am I allowed to hug you?
Yeah, this is.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's so sweet.
So, I mean, I know you're figuring it out, but it seems like you have a track record of figuring it out. So I'm pretty much confident in where you're going to go. And I'm so, so excited to watch everything that you have going on.
Thank you, my love.
That's pretty much it. Is there anything we've missed? Anything else you want to address or?
Anything I want to address?
Hello, Tara's here.
No, thank you so much for having me. I
problem.
really appreciate it. It's, I'm really proud to see how amazing things are going in Dublin.
Yeah.
As much as, I've left, I want to still be here and juggle the two of them, which you can do. You were just saying, we were talking about it earlier, how close it is between London and Dublin. So to see you doing this amazing stuff, I'm not just saying this because you've also given me flowers. By the way, I also got you flowers. No, I'm joking.
Wait, those are mine.
But to see what you're doing is amazing, and I love it. And the community that you're building and to everything, I think, is amazing. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate it. Guys, it's been Tara Kumar. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I'm going to put all the information in the description below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Culture Shock. Thanks.